There's all kinds of things like Elvis is still alive, and no one, not no one, but a lot of fans and all don't want to believe that he's hidden somewhere, that he's still alive. I wish he was still alive.
It began with a simple inventory check, one of those routine estate management tasks that usually leads nowhere. A mislabeled storage box from one of Graceland's off-site facilities. The kind of thing archivists expect to contain old receipts, maintenance logs, maybe a stack of outdated promotional materials. But the moment the lid was lifted, the room shifted. Inside was a smaller wooden container, sealed, its edges worn by time. And tucked inside that container, wrapped in a faded silk cloth, were letters, dozens of them, written in Elvis Presley's unmistakable looping script. For years, fans believed they knew every romantic chapter of Elvis's life. The public relationships, the whirlwind passions, the heartbreaks that became part of American mythology. But these letters were different from anything biographers had ever uncovered. They weren't addressed to Priscilla, Ginger, Linda, or any woman whose name had public significance. These were written to someone whose identity had never surfaced, a woman Elvis never mentioned in interviews, someone with no presence in the public timeline, someone hidden on purpose. The earliest letter stunned everyone who read it. Elvis wrote with a tenderness that cut deeper than the polished charm he offered the world. There was vulnerability in every line, an intimacy that didn't sound like the king speaking to an admirer. It sounded like a man writing to the one person who saw him without the spotlight framing his silhouette. He confessed exhaustion, loneliness, the heavy ache of being surrounded by people while feeling completely alone. And beneath those words was a longing that made one thing instantly clear. Whoever she was, she mattered to him in a way no one else did during that phase of his life. Archivists compared handwriting, ink age, and paper type, confirming that these letters were not fabrications. They were authentic, deeply personal, and written during a period when Elvis was struggling under the weight of fame and the expectations attached to his every move. These were years marked by brutal touring schedules, dissolving relationships, and the growing pressure of a legacy he felt slipping out of his control. Yet in these letters, he sounded like a man recalling glimmers of hope in the form of someone who understood him beyond the myth. The mystery intensified with each new envelope opened. Some letters were short, almost hurried, as if written in stolen moments between takes or performances. Others were longer, written with the kind of emotional clarity Elvis rarely allowed himself to express publicly. He didn't just write about affection, he wrote about trust, how rare it had become, how impossible it felt to lean on anyone without worrying they would leak his secrets or twist his vulnerability into profit. But to her, he opened the door he kept bolted for everyone else. Clues within the letters hinted at a connection that predated his final years. He referenced places he missed, conversations from earlier chapters of his life, moments too small and specific for a casual correspondence. The tone wasn't infatuation, it was recognition, as if he had rediscovered someone who reminded him of the man he used to be before the world sculpted him into an icon. Investigators noted something else. Elvis wrote these letters during periods when he was notoriously guarded, times when even close friends felt shut out. Yet here he was, not just writing, but confessing. He spoke about the exhaustion of performing strength, the pressure of maintaining a myth, and the ache of wanting authenticity in a world that rewarded illusion. What shocked researchers wasn't simply the romantic undertone, it was the honesty. This wasn't the polished Elvis shaped by publicity teams. This was the private Elvis, the man who rarely let anyone in. One detail kept resurfacing. He never addressed her by her full name. Only initials, only fragments, only hints that pointed nowhere definitive. It was as if he was protecting her even within the pages he never expected anyone else to see. And that secrecy deepened the question consuming everyone who held the letters. Why was she hidden? What made her so important and so dangerous to Elvis's public life that he kept her existence completely off the record? Then came the letter that changed everything. The one written late at night. Its ink darker, its tone heavier than all the others. A letter that didn't simply express longing or gratitude, but contained a confession, a revelation so personal, so startling, that the archivist who read it twice whispered, "This rewrites everything we thought we knew about him." And with that revelation, the mystery surrounding this woman shifted from curiosity to urgency. Because Elvis wasn't just writing love letters. He was writing to someone who held a truth he couldn't share with anyone else. As archivists examined more of the letters, a portrait of the mystery woman began to take shape. Not through direct descriptions, but through the emotional fingerprints Elvis left in every paragraph. He wrote to her as someone who understood him long before his world became blinding, someone who didn't tremble in awe of his fame, someone who wasn't impressed by the suits, the tours, the myth. His tone carried the familiarity of a man writing not to a fan or a fleeting romance, but to a presence anchored somewhere deep in his memory. Clues surfaced in subtle ways. He referenced an old diner outside Tupelo, a place he used to visit before music swallowed his life. He mentioned a conversation they once had by the window where the sun hit your hair just the same as it did when we were young. He spoke about missing the quiet we used to know, a quiet that no longer existed in the whirlwind Graceland had become. These weren't poetic flourishes. They were breadcrumbs pointing towards someone connected to a simpler chapter of his life. Historians began cross-referencing timelines, mapping out every woman Elvis was rumored to have known, every friend connected to his early years. Yet the details didn't match anyone from public record. This woman wasn't a forgotten celebrity or a backup singer or someone from the entourage. Her existence was conspicuously absent from every known biography. That absence became its own revelation. It meant Elvis had intentionally protected her. More letters appeared to be written during the mid-1970s, a period marked by exhaustion, strained relationships, and the kind of loneliness that settles on even the brightest stars. During this time, Elvis's friends described him as restless, searching for peace, aching for connection, but mistrustful of those around him. Yet in these letters, he sounded grounded, open, almost hopeful. He thanked her for listening, for reminding him of kindness when everything around him felt transactional. He wrote that her words steady me in ways the world never will. These letters didn't simply reveal affection, they revealed reliance. Investigators uncovered fragments of travel records and staff notes indicating that Elvis would vanish for a few hours at a time, occasions dismissed as spontaneous drives or late-night quiet time. But the timing of these disappearances lined up eerily well with the dates of certain letters. Some were written with the urgency of a man who had just seen someone and couldn't bear to wait to put thoughts on paper. Others carried a tone of regret, as though a planned meeting had been impossible to discreetly arrange. One detail stood out. He often apologized for being unable to visit her without drawing attention. He wrote about the burden of being watched, even in silence. "I can't walk through a door without someone turning it into a story," he said in one letter. "But you're the one place I want to walk into without the world following me." That sentiment, raw, stripped of the persona, underscored how rare this connection truly was. The letters also hinted at how they met or reconnected. One message reminisced about the night the music was too loud and you told me to stop pretending I enjoyed it. Another thanked her for not asking for a photograph when everyone else did. These lines painted a picture of someone who saw through the performance, someone who recognized the man behind the myth. Whether she knew him before fame or simply refused to treat him like a spectacle, she became the emotional refuge he desperately needed. As investigators pieced together the timeline, a new question emerged. If she mattered this deeply to Elvis, why didn't anyone in his inner circle mention her? Why was there no trace of her in interviews, tour documents, or security logs? That silence felt deliberate. Perhaps Elvis feared she would be engulfed by the publicity that consumed everyone near him. Perhaps she feared it too. Or maybe their connection lived in a space too fragile to be exposed, something they both protected by keeping it hidden from the world. And then the letters began shifting. The tone deepened. Elvis's writing became heavier, more reflective. He stopped speaking only of memories and began hinting at something they shared, something private, something the public was never meant to know. A secret tethered to both of them, buried beneath years of noise. The final letter in this section contained a line that froze every researcher who read it. "You know why I can't say your name out loud. If they knew what we carried, nothing would ever be the same." The letter's emotional center came in a paragraph written with aching clarity. Elvis confessed he was considering a major change, something that would shock everyone around him. He talked about stepping back from touring, distancing himself from certain people, maybe even leaving Graceland for a while. He described nights when he imagined disappearing to a quieter place, somewhere she could join him without reporters circling overhead. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine a life where he could simply exist with her, without the crown weighing on every decision. But the tone shifted in the final third of the letter. Hope gave way to fear, as if he doubted whether he had the strength to do what he was contemplating. He wrote about the pressure closing in, about feeling watched, about decisions being made that didn't feel like his. He admitted he was afraid of becoming a stranger to himself. And then he acknowledged something even heavier. He feared that his silence might one day destroy the connection he valued most. The unsent letter ended with a confession that froze everyone who read it. "I never told the world about you because I wanted at least one part of my life to stay mine. But if something happens, if I can't protect what we've carried all these years, you must tell the truth, even if they never believe you." No signed name, no initials, just the weight of a truth Elvis never found the courage to speak aloud. And then, beneath his signature, a final line written in a hurried stroke. "They're making plans for me, plans I didn't agree to." It was the last letter he ever wrote to her, and the fact that he never mailed it raises the question that still haunts historians today. Was he protecting her, or was he warning her? The final letter in the box looked different from the rest. The paper was thinner, the folds sharper, as if Elvis had opened and closed it repeatedly, unsure whether to send it or bury it. The handwriting was slower, the lines tighter, the words chosen with the precision of someone who understood he was writing in the shadow of something inevitable. This letter wasn't a continuation of their ongoing conversation. It felt like a farewell written by a man who had run out of time. In it, Elvis didn't speak about escape or frustration. Instead, he wrote with a strange calm, acknowledging the toll the years had taken on him. He admitted he no longer knew which parts of his life belonged to him and which belonged to the machine surrounding him. Yet even in that exhaustion, he found a moment of clarity when he wrote to her, not as the superstar the world demanded, but as the man he still hoped she remembered. He thanked her for loving him without expectation, for holding on to the pieces of him that fame had scattered. He reminded her of the early days of their connection, when conversations lasted for hours and the world outside felt distant and unimportant. He wrote about the quiet strength she carried, a strength he had leaned on in ways no one else ever knew. And then he shifted, acknowledging the reason she had remained invisible within the story of his life. "You stayed in the shadows," he wrote, "not because you were unimportant, but because you mattered too much to risk losing to the noise." It was clear from his tone that their secrecy wasn't rooted in scandal. It was rooted in preservation. He feared that if the world discovered her, they would dissect her, attach rumors to her name, twist her presence into a narrative that neither of them deserved. He couldn't protect himself from the distortions of fame, but he could protect her, and he had done so fiercely. Investigators piecing together the timeline realized the truth. The woman never came forward because Elvis protected her identity, and she honored that protection long after he was gone. The silence wasn't guilt, it was loyalty. But the letter revealed something deeper. Elvis wrote about the uncertainty surrounding his final months. He sensed a shift in the people around him, a growing urgency, decisions being made without him, promises written in the language of business rather than care. He admitted he felt like he was being guided somewhere without being told why, a sentence that now chills anyone who reads it. He wasn't paranoid, he was observant. He saw the machinery closing in and recognized that his life was no longer his to steer. Yet even then, he didn't express resentment toward her. Instead, he gave her the only thing he had left to offer, the truth that he couldn't trust anyone else with. The final paragraphs carried a heartbreaking mixture of resignation and hope. Elvis wrote about longing for a life he never got to live, a quiet home, a slower rhythm, a chance to be a man instead of a monument. He spoke of wanting to sit beside her on a porch somewhere far from the stage lights, watching the world move at a pace that didn't devour him. It was a dream he had carried quietly, a dream the world never knew he cherished. And then, with a softness that reads almost like a whisper, he wrote, "If I leave this world before I find peace, I pray you remember that you were the closest I ever came to it." Those words reframed everything. They revealed that Elvis's greatest emotional anchor in his final years wasn't a public relationship, a career ambition, or the empire he built. It was this quiet, hidden connection. This woman who remained untouched by fame because she existed in the one place Elvis fought desperately to protect, the private corners of his heart. Why didn't she reveal the letters after his death? The answer lay between the lines. She understood that coming forward would distort everything he had tried to shield. Her silence wasn't an omission. It was devotion. She guarded his secret the same way he had guarded her identity. The discovery of these letters does more than rewrite Elvis's romantic history. It reshapes his legacy. Behind the glittering myth stood a man still searching for belonging, still yearning for connection, still trying to hold on to the slivers of humanity fame kept stripping away. And in these letters, for the first time, we meet that man fully, not as the king, but as Elvis Aaron Presley, writing his heart onto paper for the only person who knew him without the crown. If these letters changed how you see Elvis, share your thoughts below. Do you believe this mystery woman was his truest love, or the final piece of his untold story? Comment your theory and subscribe for more emotional, hidden chapters from the lives of iconic stars.